You know, sometimes a single tiny, unconfirmed movie rumor is all it takes to cause a complete meltdown in a fandom. And that's exactly what's happening with Spider-Man right now. Why? Because it threatens to bring one of the most hated characters in modern comics to the big screen, and in doing so, it's digging up a controversy that's been raging for well over a decade. Let's get into it.
Okay, so this is Paul Rabin. In the comics, his whole deal is that he's Mary Jane Watson's new boyfriend. That's it. But if you search his name online, you will find a level of pure, unfiltered hatred that is genuinely shocking for what is, let's be honest, a C-list character. So what's the real story here? What could this guy have possibly done to earn this much vitriol from fans?
So this whole thing blew up again because of a rumor about this actor, Iman Esandi, who you might have just seen in the Ahsoka series. The word on the street is that he's been cast in the next Spider-Man movie, and specifically as MJ's new boyfriend. Now, for any comic fan who's been paying attention, that can only mean one thing. Paul is coming to the MCU.
Now, from a pure story perspective, this makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, after the events of No Way Home, MJ has no memory of Peter Parker. It's tragic, but of course she'd move on and find somebody new. But for longtime comic readers, the idea that it could be this specific character, well, that's a massive red flag. And to really understand why, we've got to jump into the comics.
So, who exactly is Paul Rabin in the comics? Well, his introduction wasn't exactly what you'd call simple. It involves alternate dimensions, it involves ancient gods, and just a whole lot of baggage that was kind of dropped right into the middle of Peter and MJ's lives.
All right, you're going to want to buckle up for this because his backstory is a ride. Paul is from an alternate dimension that was totally destroyed because his scientist father decided to mess around with a Mayan god. You heard me right. Then, years later, MJ gets accidentally zapped into this dead world and gets stuck there with Paul for 4 years. And while they're trapped, they fall in love and they adopt 2 kids. It's a lot.
But wait, the weirdness does not stop there. The big twist is that their kids, they were never even real. Nope, they were magical constructs, basically illusions created by a villain just to torment them. So their entire little family was a lie. And as truly bizarre as all of that is, it's still not the real reason people hate Paul. The real reason is so much bigger than his own story. You see, the truth is, the incredible amount of hate for Paul has almost nothing to do with him as a character. It's all about what he represents. And to understand that, we have to go back to One More Day, which might just be the single most infamous and controversial storyline in all of Spider-Man history. This timeline really puts everything into perspective. Peter and MJ got married all the way back in 1987, and they stayed married for 20 years. An entire generation of fans grew up with Spider-Man as a husband. Then, in 2007, this story, One More Day, has them literally make a deal with a demon to erase their marriage from all of reality. It just never happened. And then, 15 years after that decision, Paul arrives. So why on earth would Marvel do this? Well, the official reason, coming from Marvel's editor-in-chief at the time, Joe Quesada, was that a married Peter Parker just felt too old. They believed it removed all the soap opera drama. The editorial team was convinced that a single Peter was more relatable and would just, allow for better stories, restoring that classic down-on-his-luck charm. The fan reaction was, to put it mildly, immediate and overwhelmingly negative. Critics just destroyed the story. Look at this IGN review, which argued it actually damaged the character instead of helping him. To this day, One More Day is widely considered one of the worst Spider-Man stories ever told, because it felt like it just undid decades of character growth in a really cheap and disrespectful way.
And this right here is the absolute heart of the entire issue. For so many fans, Paul isn't just some rival for MJ's affection. No, he is the living, breathing symbol of that editorial decision that they've hated for more than a decade. Every single time he's on the page, he's a reminder that the marriage was erased and that Peter and MJ are being kept apart on purpose.
And what makes this all so interesting is the clear double standard it reveals. I mean, think about it. In all the years since the marriage was erased, Peter has dated plenty of other characters. Black Cat, Mockingbird, you name it. And the fan reaction was mostly fine, just some mild commentary. But the moment MJ gets one serious boyfriend, the outrage is completely off the charts. It proves the hate isn't really about her moving on. It's about him being the symbol of One More Day. So, okay, let's bring this all back around to the movies. Why would Marvel Studios, with its multi-billion-dollar franchise that they protect so carefully, even think about using a character that comes with so much controversy and fan baggage?
I want you to just think back to that absolutely devastating ending of No Way Home. Peter makes the ultimate sacrifice, and it leaves him utterly alone, with the love of his life having no clue who he is. It is such a powerful and heartbreaking emotional setup for whatever comes next.
This is almost certainly a case of what you might call provocative casting. Look, Marvel Studios is famous for being meticulous. They know exactly who Paul is and what he represents to the comic book fandom. If they cast him, you can bet it's not an accident. It is a very deliberate choice.
By introducing a character like Paul into this incredibly fragile emotional landscape, Marvel can instantly generate a massive amount of conflict. Not just for Peter Parker on the screen, but for us, the audience, watching. They know we want to see Peter and MJ get back together, so putting Paul in the way just maximizes that tension, and it taps directly into 15 years of comic book history and frustration. It's a shortcut to high-stakes drama.
Which of course leaves us with the million-dollar question. If this rumor turns out to be true, is the MCU's version of Paul just a temporary roadblock? You know, an obstacle for Peter to overcome before he and MJ finally reunite? Or is it a sign that Marvel Studios is taking a page right out of the comics, and they plan on keeping their most iconic couple apart for good? I guess we'll just have to wait and see.